Why does missing someone hurt so much and yet feel so alive? It's not just that they're gone. No, you miss them because of the pain itself. That ache in your chest, the sting behind your eyes. It's proof they meant something. Without the pain, there'd be nothing left. And that scares you more than the loss itself. Think about it. The memory of their laugh, the warmth of their hand, it's tangled up with the absence, with the loss, with everything you didn't get to say. You don't just miss who they were. You miss who you were around them. That version of you that felt needed, loved, seen. Schopenhauer once wrote that pain is the more positive element of emotion because pleasure fades, but pain lingers. It etches itself into your experience. And yeah, it sucks, but it's real. It's undeniable. And in a world full of fake smiles and shallow highs, that kind of rawness feels like truth. That's why you keep poking the bruise, replaying that last message, smelling their shirt. You're not weak, you're human. You crave meaning more than comfort, even if it burns. Here's the twist. Missing someone isn't a flaw to fix. It's a form of connection that outlives the relationship. Missing is memory's way of keeping the light on, even after the door closes. But here's the hard part. Are you missing them? Or are you afraid of facing what's left without them? Let's talk about that. Society shames you for longing. Why is it that the moment you admit you still miss someone, people flinch? They look at you like you failed some invisible test. You should be over that by now. Don't dwell on the past. It's subtle, but the message is loud. Longing is weakness. Wanting someone who's gone, whether they left, passed away, or simply faded out, is seen as pathetic, like you're stuck, broken, addicted to your own pain. But here's what society doesn't tell you. Longing isn't a flaw. It's human wiring. Psychologist John Bowlby spent decades studying this. His attachment theory explains that emotional bonds, especially deep ones, don't just vanish because time passed or circumstances changed. Your brain literally builds neural pathways around connection, around closeness, around safety. When that bond breaks, the longing doesn't mean you're damaged. It means you're wired for love. And yet, we live in a culture that worships independence, moving on, letting go, like closure is a box you just check. But grief, attachment, memory, those aren't linear. They loop, they revisit, they flare up when you least expect it. So no, you're not broken for missing someone. You're just responding exactly how a human being is meant to respond when something that mattered is gone. The real question is, who benefits from making you feel ashamed for feeling? Let's dig into that. The evolution of emotional bondage. Ever wonder why you can't just cut someone off and be fine? Why your body still reacts? Tight chest, racing heart, even when your mind knows they were toxic. That's not just emotion. That's biology, doing its job a little too well. Long before texts, therapy, or ghosting, attachment meant survival. If you didn't stay close to your tribe, your parent, your protector, you died. Simple as that. Bowlby understood this. He wasn't just talking about baby-mother bonding. He was uncovering something primal. Your brain equates attachment with safety. And modern neuroscience backs it up. Emotional closeness triggers the release of oxytocin, your bonding chemical, while separation or rejection lights up the same pain centers in the brain as physical injury. That's right, heartbreak literally hurts. And here's where it gets messy. Your brain doesn't distinguish between healthy and harmful bonds. So if you grew up in a chaotic home, where love was unpredictable, or attention came with strings, your nervous system still formed ties. Because inconsistency was better than abandonment. That's how trauma bonds form. Same with abusive partners, or cults, or manipulative friends. The more intense the cycle of threat and relief, the stronger the bond becomes. Sounds backwards, right? But evolution didn't optimize for happiness. It optimized for staying attached at all costs. So if you're wondering why you're still drawn to someone who hurt you, it's not just nostalgia, it's not weakness. It's ancient wiring firing in a modern world. The question is, how do you unlearn a survival strategy that once saved you, but now chains you? Let's get into that. Your shadow picks your attachments. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes the people you miss the most are the ones who hurt you the most. And that's not random. It's not weakness. It's your shadow, the part of you you've buried, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Carl Jung called it the unconscious compensatory drive. You're not just drawn to people. You're drawn to mirrors, reflections of your wounds, of your unmet needs, of your wounded child self, still waiting to be seen, to be chosen, to be made whole. You think you're just missing them. But what if you're really missing the version of you that hoped they'd change? The part of you that still believes healing will come if you just hold on tight enough. This is how projection works. You cast forgotten parts of yourself onto someone else, especially the painful ones. You assign them roles in your inner story: rescuer, villain, lost parent. And the more unresolved the wound, the more magnetic the pull. That's why people end up stuck in cycles of trauma repetition, falling for the same kind of partner, defending the same kind of cruelty, even missing it when it's gone. You're not crazy for missing someone toxic. You're trying, unconsciously, to finish a story that started long before they showed up. The shadow craves integration. It seeks the other half, even if that half is wrapped in harm. But here's the twist. Healing doesn't come from getting the abuser to love you. It comes from reclaiming the parts of you you abandoned to survive. That ache in your chest? It might not be about them at all. It might be the echo of your own voice calling you back home. So ask yourself this: what part of you did they awaken? And are you ready to face it without them in the room? Love isn't pure, it's strategic. Let's drop the fairy tale. Love isn't always pure. Sometimes it's strategic. People don't just give love, they use it. They sense your softness, your longing to be seen, and they offer just enough warmth to hook you, then twist it. That's not romance. That's leverage. Machiavelli warned us. Human connection can be a tool for control. Not everyone plays fair. Some people show vulnerability not to open a door, but to lower your guard. They apologize to keep you close, cry to deflect blame, give you crumbs of intimacy so you'll stay starving at their feet. And when they leave, they know you'll miss them. That's part of the plan. So if you're stuck missing someone who hurt you, it might not mean you're broken. It might mean they played the game well, and you're still caught in it. That's the real cruelty of emotional manipulation. It doesn't just wound you, it rewires you, makes you question what was real, makes you crave the very thing that made you bleed. Love, when twisted, becomes a weapon. And the worst part? The wound it leaves looks just like devotion. But now that you see it, you get to ask the harder question. Was it really love? Or just control dressed in affection? Let's go deeper. The illusion of closure is a trap. Closure. That word gets thrown around like it's some kind of magic button. Just get closure and move on. But here's the truth. Closure is a trap. A myth dressed up as healing. And chasing it? That's how you stay stuck. Because closure implies that one final conversation, one perfect explanation will free you. That if they just said the right thing, I'm sorry, I loved you, it wasn't your fault, then you'd finally let go. But what if the need for closure isn't about peace? What if it's about control? About trying to make the story make sense so it hurts less? That's not healing. That's bargaining. In abusive relationships, cults, toxic jobs, even politics, we see this play out. People stay loyal long after the betrayal. Why? Because they're still waiting for that satisfying ending. For the moment when the person who hurt them says, "You were right." But that moment rarely comes. Because if someone had that much power over your emotions, they're probably not the type to give it back. Think about the leader who lied, the partner who cheated, the mentor who abandoned you. You're still waiting for them to own it. But here's the gut punch. They don't need to give you closure for you to move on. The longing for closure keeps you emotionally kneeling, still looking up to the person who broke you. It's submission dressed as self-help. Real freedom comes when you stop waiting for their words and write your own ending instead. So ask yourself, are you really healing, or are you still begging the villain to give you the last line? Let's talk about how to take the pen back. Pain bonds you more than joy. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Pain bonds you more than joy. Not because you're broken, but because your brain was built for survival, not happiness. Neurobiologically, intense emotional pain leaves a stronger imprint than pleasure. The fear, the tears, the gut-wrenching moments, they burn themselves into memory. Kindness? It's soft, subtle. It doesn't hit the nervous system the same way. But cruelty? Chaos? That gets etched in. That's why you remember the fight more than the laughter. Why you can still feel the tone of their voice when they blamed you, but not the way they looked at you when they said, "I love you." And here's where it gets darker. Because that pain is familiar, part of you craves returning to the scene, not for punishment, but for resolution, for meaning. Bowlby's work on separation anxiety shows how the absence of a caregiver triggers panic, even if that caregiver caused pain. The child clings tighter, not because they feel safe, but because they fear abandonment more. Stockholm Syndrome follows the same pattern. Hostages don't bond with captors because they're stupid. They bond because the nervous system needs connection, even if it comes through fear. So if you're obsessing over someone who hurt you, that doesn't mean you're weak. It means your brain is doing its job, trying to keep you attached to the source of pain, hoping it'll someday bring relief. But survival is not the same as freedom. And pain, no matter how vivid, is not proof of love. The next question is, are you loyal to them or just loyal to the wound they left behind? Turn longing into inner power. Longing feels like weakness, but it's not. It's energy. Raw, potent, emotional energy. And you can either keep bleeding it out toward people who exploited you, or you can reclaim it, turn it inward, and build something stronger. That ache in your chest? That spiral of what-ifs? It's not just pain, It's your psyche begging for integration. Jung believed that longing, especially the obsessive kind, was often the soul trying to return to itself. Not to the person you miss, but to the part of you they mirrored. That's where shadow work begins. You don't chase them. You turn around and face yourself. Start small. Write a letter, not to them, but to your inner child. What were you really needing when you met that person? Love? Protection? Validation? Speak it aloud. Let that voice be heard. Keep a journal by your bed. Track your dreams. Your subconscious is always talking. You just have to start listening. Even your darkest fantasies, the ones that make you flinch, they're data. They show you where the wound lives and where the power is locked up. When you stop pouring your longing into people who hurt you, you create space for something wild, self-reunion. You become the thing you were searching for. You become the closure, the comfort, the protector, the lover. This isn't about moving on. It's about moving inward. Because the person you've been waiting for to come back might just be you. You were taught to betray yourself. You weren't born betraying yourself. You were taught to, from the time you could speak, the world started drilling it in. Sit still. Smile politely. Don't make others uncomfortable. School punished you for talking back, not for lying. Religion told you obedience was godly, even if your gut screamed, no. Culture praised you for being agreeable, forgiving, quiet, not authentic, compliant. So of course now, when someone hurts you, your first instinct isn't to leave. It's to fix it, to stay, to make yourself smaller so the connection doesn't break. That's not love. That's survival training. When you miss someone toxic, it's not just because of who they were, it's because you were trained to override your own discomfort just to stay close. You learned to confuse safety with submission. And over time, you stopped asking the most important question, what do I need? Instead, you asked, how do I keep them from leaving? That's how self-abandonment becomes a habit. A reflex, a quiet, daily betrayal. But here's the wake-up call. Missing someone who hurt you doesn't mean they were special. It might just mean you're still running the old program, where connection always comes before self-respect. The good news? That script can be rewritten. You can learn how to stay with yourself, even if it means letting them go. Missing them is a wake-up call. Missing them isn't proof that they were right for you. It's a wake-up call that something deep inside you is ready to rise. You think the ache means you need them back, that if they return, the pain would stop. But what if that's not true? What if the real reason you miss them is because you still haven't fully met yourself? That empty space they left behind. It's not a void, it's a doorway. A crack in the old identity, a chance to step out of the person you became just to keep them around, and into the person you were always meant to be. Grief feels like an ending, but it's really the beginning of something sacred, individuation. Jung's word for the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And that kind of growth doesn't come from clinging to what left. It comes from standing still in the silence and listening to the self that's been whispering underneath the noise. Missing someone is never just about them. It's about the part of you they awakened, or the part they silenced. And now that they're gone, you get to choose what to do with what's left. Do you keep chasing the echo, or do you finally turn inward? Face the pain head on and let it transform you. Because here's the truth. The version of you that needed them is already dying. That's what you're grieving. And what comes next is terrifying, but it's also liberating. You get to become someone who doesn't beg to be seen because they've already seen themselves. So no, you don't need them back. You need to step through the pain and meet the person you were always too scared to be. That's not heartbreak, that's becoming.